G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Execute and today I'm joined by Algared. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. But man, that hangover was what a big one.
You got a hangover. Look what I got. Yeah. So after I met Algared, I actually had a bad arm before the bar citizen, and it got a lot worse. And I actually ended up in hospital for almost a week.
Yeah, well, I remember you'd said you'd had the sore arm, and you said, oh yeah, but it was on the day, and you said, oh, my arm's really bad, and I'm not even sure I can make it. I've kind of been at the hospital or clinics all day.
And we took a bunch of footage. We interviewed a bunch of people, and I haven't even had a chance to look at it because I've been in hospital. So it's still there, ready to go. I might do that up as an episode down the track, but I already almost feel like it's been too long. But we'll see what we can make of it. But that was just not to be helped because of my health situation.
But even because, like, we were saying, hey, we're at the Bar Citizen in Sydney, blah blah blah, but the three questions we were asking were fairly, I think, relevant in terms of just Star Citizens. What do they think? What do they feel? And there were some of our own audience who were there.
It was a really good themes across the questions too, like a lot of things that were similar to the way people were responding and stuff like that. So I did find that very interesting, and my thoughts echoed theirs as well. So yeah. And it was really great to meet, put faces to names, which is the opposite because people knew our face, but they kind of didn't know us. But it was really weird because I'd sometimes read a name and they go, oh, like I know you, and they'd walk up to you and introduce themselves, and you had no idea who they were, and then they go, oh yeah, my online name is this or whatever. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I'd get that. I recognise you. I know you from.
Yeah.
No, I don't know you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And a lot of people, because I shaved, look completely different. They look like you got me straight away. Like as soon as I got to the top stairs, you were just like, yeah, I'm over here. And
that was even before I saw the T-shirt.
Yeah. Which, if people haven't seen the photo, I actually took a old man
Hurston T-shirt.
Yeah,
photo
with Algared's face on it. Yeah, so which is a bit of a laugh. So yeah, but
I was talking to Rough Rider, the guy who photoshopped the picture. And when I'd first seen saw the old man Hurston picture, I thought, he's taken one of the pictures of a Hurstons and kind of photoshopped it. And he said, oh no, I took I think it was Woodrow Wilson, one of the presidents, and then photoshopped him out and put the Hurstons behind it, and then but it really, to me, that it really did have that look of the Hurston family pictures in the in Hurston. So that was quite a novelty. Paul probably regrets it though.
So typically in front of this fashion, we're 3 minutes in and we haven't even mentioned what we're going to be talking about. So we'll talk more about this on the live stream because obviously some people would like to know.
I'll do the segue.
Yeah.
We're trying to salvage the information that we had from the Bar Citizen. There you go.
Yeah, that's a good segue. So yeah, we were thinking today we might do an easy one for us because I've obviously had a week. Algared's had a week, and he's about to have a week, aren't you? You've got a lot of work stuff coming up. So we thought we'd talk about one of my favorite things, which is Salvage, and expectations for it coming out in 3.18. So Algared, I'll let you kick it off, Algared.
Yeah, and while Salvage itself isn't for me, like your favourite ship's not necessarily my favourite ship, but one of my favourite ships is actually the flip side of your favourite ship, which is my favourite. One of mine's the Crucible. So, and they both really do. They're two sides of the same coin.
They are indeed.
And so even though we're getting Salvage, I think that also bodes well for the repair and stuff down the track as well. So
maybe we can talk about a little bit about that as well, because they do share one thing that is almost identical in common, but they also do share the secondary part, and I think that's where they change a little bit. And if you haven't noticed, my camera's frozen.
Yep, I did notice.
But so with the initial paint stripping or hull stripping, as they're calling it, That part will almost be identical, where it goes
Mm.
on and comes off. That'll literally, from a coding perspective, be exactly the same. Obviously, with the secondary part where you're actually crushing the hull, that would be different because you're
Yep.
crushing it for salvage, but you're kind of like 3D printing or creating it for repair.
And I think that first level is really the level you get with, say, the Vulture and the
hand tools and stuff like that. Yeah.
and the Vulcan. The that paint on, paint off type thing. Oh, paint on, paint off. Sorry, bit of Karate Kid there. But I think as we go up higher, even though I'm pretty certain that the Crucible will still have some of that paint on, paint off stuff, it goes the next step and it starts doing the heavier stuff, the heavier repair. And whereas, as we know, with the more, it goes beyond just scraping off the hull as well. It munches a whole hull and then crunches it all up and into usable bites. So certainly there's a lot of steps that we're going to see coming with Salvation with Salvage.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at you.
It'll be the salvation of the economic gameplay. There you go.
Salvation of Salvage. But because they actually said that the hull stripping would be the first thing that we get. But I'm actually wondering, like, what does that mean initially for ships like the Vulture, because it's also capable of that crushing stuff. Does that mean that we just kind of leave like these little hull pieces floating in space for the first, for 318? Is that your expectation, or do you think there'll be some kind of way that we just miraculously suck it up, or like what's your thought process?
Well, it depends how much it can scrape down. So if you can keep scraping down the surface of that beam, you might be able to get the whole lock done. It's just you're taking off a minute layer each time you're doing it. Whereas at a later level, you just put it in the more and it just grinds it up and crunches it. So,
well, it obviously depends on the structure of the ship. So you obviously know where you've taken a hit on a wing and you can see that structure underneath. That structure underneath is the stuff that's got to be crushed. That in the case of the Vulture, it's got to be blasted apart, literally into chunks. So
it is an interesting question as to how that scraping aspect will work. Whether you can actually use the scrapers to not just scrape off the panels of the skin, but also use it to scrape down the framework and eventually even remove the framework. But if that is the case, I would expect that to take significantly longer than blasting it off for.
I actually think like tier 0, where you can almost take everything off as one layer. I'm actually curious to know in the future if different materials can be taken off, almost like different brush types, but in reverse. Because at the moment, if you've looked at the stuff they had for the Vulture, it was almost like using 2 lasers on the end of the Vulture to make like a rectangle brush, I guess is the way to put it. And so you could obviously move around and very quickly strip one way and then rotate it the other way and then use it to strip, depending on what surface you were.
And I imagine that what they're looking at with that is the way the dial up of your lasers will actually impact what type of material you're actually harvesting.
It did change the width too, didn't it? So it's a little bit like
very much like mining.
Well, I was gonna say like Photoshop, because you can change the size of the paintbrush size, and you can also change the width and the length. So I almost wonder why they've gone that deep. Like, does it really need to be that deep? Like, I can understand changing the size, but why also the length and the width thing? That was what confused me a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going for that. Dare I say it, the fidelity, the desire to have such an in-depth, engaging gameplay for whatever loop you're in. And if you're into Salvage, you don't just want to be going paint on, paint off, paint on, paint off. Mr. Miyagi, show me proper karate. And so, show me better salvage than just swipe on, swipe off. And I think initially when mining came along, people were saying, "Oh, why is it you change the dials and zero it into the right amount?" And why can't we just kind of hit it with a hammer type thing? Well, hitting it with a hammer, like in every other MMO, is boring as rodent dung.
That shit. You can say it. It's fine. You won't die, Algared. It's fine. Might not be as you put it. What do you call it? Not salvaged. Salvage. What was the word you? Salvation. You would not be salvated, but yeah. The other part I'd like to ask too is I wonder how when it gets to bigger ships, are they going to just have like a way broader laser that just like instantly strips the hull? Because we've seen things like the Reclaimer where it's literally like this giant tunnel and it just sucks stuff in. So I'm actually curious to know if it becomes more about the processing and sorting in something that's bigger, or is it literally, almost akin to mining at the moment? We've only got the 2 ships, but it literally is the same thing all the way along. It just gets bigger and bigger.
If I remember correctly, I'm going to hedge a bet and say with the bigger ships it actually sorts.
No. You misunderstand what I mean.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is, does it take what that initial thing is and then it adds a step every single time? So for the mole, you've essentially got the mining of the prospector, which is its base level, plus you've got the sorting, and then. So what I'm saying with the Reclaimer, you've got, you still have the stripping, you still have the munching, and then there's this huge sorting aspect, and then there's a refining aspect. So you can almost see the 4 stages there, and you lose one as you go back down a ship. Is what I'm trying to say.
And that makes sense. And I think we certainly see that with I don't know if we see that already with the salvage loop. So we see that the the hand tools, you're literally just doing hand stripping. With the vulture, you're doing stripping plus the ability to do a bit more blasting and heavier stuff, and even be able to gather the stuff into cubes. Yep. I think we're missing a ship in the middle. And I've just lost one of my lights. It's just died on me.
That's all right.
But that's okay. And then with the Reclaimer, you've not only got that stripping side, because we know we've got the laser, but we've also got the maw, which pulls stuff in, and we know from a conveyor belt it's sorting stuff. So you can actually see there is that progression of steps.
Yep.
That are in.
You've also got the claw. You've also got things like the laser cutting. So like we know the Vulture, for example, has to blast the ship apart using blast charges. So almost the very first step up. So what would be
a ship with cutters, so it doesn't have to use the blasters, and then
exactly.
So I would expect to see a ship somewhere in between the Vulture and the Reclaimer that does probably the stripping and the laser cutting. Yeah. Almost the panel beating ship.
And the last one could almost be like the Reclaimer, but it just doesn't have the refining or less sorting features. Or it doesn't have the claw. Something like that. So
because I think I believe the Reclaimer's supposed to have a refinery to actually refine the ore down.
Yep.
Oh, not the ore down, but the materials down.
I do now suspect though, things like the Starfarer, the Reclaimer, and the Orion, those ships that were said to have refineries, and I think they changed the Reclaimer. It's a processing unit now, it's called. But I actually think what they're actually for is just to remove that volatility factor. I don't think they're really going to be the powerhouses of refining that we originally thought they were.
I think that's part of design. I think that when they develop the refineries, they actually say what a refinery is going to do.
And I think you can see that in something like, say, the Starfarer that has 3 refineries, yet the Expanse, which is the default refinery, has 6. So, or the starting refinery. So I think that's very clear that they are even less powerful than a dedicated refinery. They just, turn off that volatility of the quantanium or some other things that we haven't seen yet, like gas or whatever.
And certainly for the Starfarer, I can see them feeling they've got to keep that with the staff, giving the Starfarer that ability to refine the fuel and make fuel, because that was always the big selling point when it was first created.
Yep.
It can harvest and refine fuel, and there was a major, raising of pitchforks and flaming torches when when it was the reveal that the Starfarer can no longer harvest quantanium. So.
Well, on a side note to that, I think that's kind of a strength and yet a weakness of salvage. Is it literally, if you look at it, how the mining of ore and the mining of gas, this is essentially both, but it has an additional process of it has to be sorted and it has to be melted down and turned back into those elements. So basically, you get the access to both, ore and gas, but you've kind of got to recycle it, so to speak. So there's that extra step that I think that will slow you down. So maybe, so essentially, if you looked at it in gameplay terms that I would consider equal, and I'm not saying that this is how they're going to do it, but say it took you twice as long to mine, but you were able to mine both ore and gas, would you consider that fair?
Yeah, look, I think it goes with the gameplay. If it's taking you time and you're able to do twice as much, man, it seems fair to me.
Yeah.
But if it was, I'm doing two processes, I'm running them at the same time, I'm getting twice the amount of stuff, and I'm still using the same crew as someone who's doing the doing the dedicated one, you'd start to say there's something not right here. Yeah. So if there's an advantage in it, there's going to be a disadvantage down the track, whether it's your ship's going to run out of power because you're doing such a drain. Your ship's going to overheat, so it's going to beat their beacon to any pirate out in the system, saying, "Oh, there's someone doing refining there. Let's go and loot them." There's going to be advantages and disadvantages. So as you often say, that scissors paper rock. If you get an advantage one area, you can guarantee there's going to be a disadvantage, whether we see it or not.
Yeah. So I'm expecting something like that, and as I said, it's already in that thing where you've kind of got the extra steps seem to be the processing or the sorting out of stuff, and that's because you're obviously dealing with raw materials. And if you look in the back of something like a reclaimer, they've got all these big pits and tubes and stuff like that. So it looks like that is a fundamental large part of it.
And that was what I was going to say before about with the sorting. It does look like in the back you've got these 8 big bins for putting different types of salvage, and even apart from the bins, you've got a massive central area where there's stuff for storage. So it does look like it is in that step. Will the reclaimer be usable with the first stage of salvage? Probably not. It's probably still going to be stuck where it is in limbo.
I think we'll probably get the reclaimer when we get the processing part. So just the ability to munch up the actual hull, and if they do somehow get that in this first iteration, though they've said that we won't be getting that, and that then again was at the start of the year, so you knew as well as I do things change. But I would like to see that, because like fundamentally at the moment you're sucking in like the hull and it's turning into liquids that you can sell off, but I'd like it, fundamentally the paint, but I would like to be able to, in something like the Vulture, crush up and have those little cubes to sell as well.
It would be nice to be able to have a reclaimer do what a reclaimer's supposed to do. And the reclaimer, like I think one of the things that shows the reclaimer's advantages of the thing in terms of its industry is the downside that it really does fly like a tank. It really does take a lot of time to get it out of atmosphere or to control it in atmosphere. And that makes sense.
I think in another way, Algared, you could also see it as a benefit, because let's look at its competitor is the Orion, so to speak, that can't go down to planets. So even though it struggles like crazy, at least it can. You know what I mean? So
the Orion can once.
That's about it. Yeah.
It can once.
You get my point though. Like, so even if it's really, really difficult, and I don't think that'll be the last ship we see like that. To be honest, like I think there'll be, like we've seen the Idris fly around in atmosphere, but I still think some of those really big ships are going to struggle like that. We've got
I think when we saw the Idris, it was on a low gravity moon rather than, and it was, and even then it still seemed to be flying fairly slow in comparison to.
Yeah, so you hit another point there with the low gravity stuff. Like, what's that going to be on a high gravity moon? That there will be places these things will just totally struggle.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of goes into that lore question why so many admirals fly their javelins into or carriers into planets. I think there's at least three javelin destroyers and two carriers that we know of in lore that have kind of landed once on a planet.
Yeah.
So
yeah. For me though, I think the real strength of this, when people realize it's kind of dual function, I'm really because again with the paint stripping, right? You just tell me, because this is the way my brain's working, so I want to kind of get your side of it. When I look at the reclaimer or the salvage, I should say rather, the chewing or the munching, that seems like the ores to me, and the paint stripping, that seems like the mining of gas and stuff. Now, I don't know if you were in the same vein as me, but or do you think that they are just completely separate elements? Like one might be the liquid and gas and one might be ore, or do you think they're separate? Because I know that they've, like if you look at the Vulture, there's actually liquid storage containers on those front arms, but then we also know in the back that it's got that crushing muncher thing for ores. So when I look at it, I actually see the two components of the mining of ore and gas in there. And if you think about it, the stripping part might be the first time we kind of see a tipping towards gas. And if we also see in the market, so to speak, like in the where you can sell stuff, new materials that lean towards gas and liquids, this might be official confirmation. Well, we do have official confirmation. They've literally said that you can still mine underground and stuff like that. So
I got the impression that with the Vulture, when it was stripping, the materials were going back into that muncher, and it was then putting that material into making it the material that was being scraped off into the cubes.
So my understanding of it is different then, because so imagine like a door came in between the arms of the Vulture. You've got those 8 canisters for each side, and they have these, if you've seen the concept images, they kind of have like these blue laser things. That's actually stripping the paint off, and then the door itself would be revealed underneath. So the frame, and the frame goes back and is sucked into the munchers and crushed. So you have the paint that's taken off at the front, so to speak, or the shell, and then the actual underlying frame that goes to the back and that is crushed and that is turned into. So it's two separate things. So that's the thing I'm trying to get through into most people's heads, is unlike mining, which just makes ore, or mining that makes gas, you get both from salvage. So that and if you weirdly look at it, as I kept telling you, remember that pyramid thing I was talking about with the refining? That's how I think they balance refining. It gets both. Salvage. They get both, but the process is slowed down.
I think what I think with salvage is you do get both. In fact, you get 3 parts. You get the components of the ships that you're salvaging that are repairable.
Yep.
You get the fuel and the ammunition that you've got to take off from the ship before you munch it, because they're volatile. You have to get rid of those volatile aspects before you munch the ship and crunch the ship. Otherwise, you're going to have explosions.
So that's a real, sorry, just to hit on your point, that's a really good point of what I was trying to say. You've kind of got to take your time to take it. Like you can't just like rock up to a rock and mine it, or rock up to a gas mode and mine it. You've got to, there's a process of taking everything out, and that's what slows you down. Sorry, that's probably the better way to explain it, like how you explained it there. Sorry.
I'm not sure it's in the sense of scraping off and then munching the whole. It's you've got to actually take those different components out before you can actually do the crunching and everything else. And
agreed.
And that's the aspect that takes time.
Well, also
when you go to a rock,
even with something as small as the Vulture, if you use blast charges and there's a volatile component, it can blow the whole ship apart. Yeah. And I think I just lost Algared. I wonder if he's going to come back.
Yeah, come back.
Yep, you're back.
Yep,
we had an awkward 10 seconds, but that's totally fine.
I know. It was just one of those.
Should have heard of all the terrible things I said about you, but that's fine. But where you're up to? So we're talking about components and that it could.
Yeah. So when I look at salvage, as I said at the beginning, I see it as the flip side of repair. And so whatever you're doing in salvage, the reverse of that is what you're doing in repair. So,
well, let's look at that then. So, like you said, you've taken components out. You'd be putting new components back into ships. I agree with that.
Yep. You're taking fuel out. What are you doing in repair? One of the aspects is refueling ships.
Yep.
You're taking ammunition and stuff out.
Yep.
What are you doing? You're putting new ammo in. You're stripping paint. You're stripping the side off a ship. What are you doing? You're spray painting the new side on.
You would be also, instead of crushing, say, crushing a wing on a plane that you're
actually reprinting the wing on the plane, or
Yep.
So at every level, I think you see the repair aspect, and I think because of that, that lends more to the components being more different.
I think
different from the gas and mining to being a different system.
The more I sit here and think about applying and removing the layer of that shell or the paint or the stripping, the more I think that they could have a really interesting gameplay there. So remember what I was saying about how you could have different, almost like different paint brushes to remove different layers. So say there's a wing and it's made of titanium and copper. So I can take the copper off with one brush, and then I've got to go in and take it off. And the better I take it off, the more pure that copper is, and the less time I've got to take to refine it.
The less time I've got to refine it. If I manage to get it without bits of titanium or titanium without the copper, that type of aspect.
Or in a lower quality ship, it doesn't even get refined. So it's sold shit because that's all I can do, right? That could be another part to the different layers of. And then
if you go back to the repair aspect,
that's what I was about to say. And then you go the other way, you can obviously draw it on as well. Yeah.
Even on the repair aspect, there may be times where, even though I want to use titanium to repair the ship, I need to use ghastly, horrible mix because just to get the ship worthy, just so to patch it up with a makeshift patch so it can get back to base.
That's a good point, actually.
And then you might need to do heavier repairs to, cut out that section that you've put in to get a proper repair job done.
You might not have paint to even colour the ship, so to speak. Say you've got a red hornet or something.
A red hornet with hatch marks all over it. I used to like having the ships with the burn marks on. So sometimes you didn't want to repair the ship just because it had that real cool. I've been through hell.
I also think with repair, the reconstruction of the wing. So how you got the processing with salvage. I don't think you've got the processing with repair. So to make that up, it would be somehow the 3D printing of the wing. There's some kind of technique there where you've got to actually do it yourself or something like that. I think that might be a thing. I could be wrong.
I would say you've got to get whereas in the salvage, if you look at the salvage and you say you're stripping it down and breaking it down into components, when you're doing repair, you've got to get those components. If you want to do the wing, you've crunched up a wing that's got titanium and copper and aluminium in it. You want to redo that wing, you've got to get the right components and the right ratio of those components in that mix to actually be able to print them.
I just thought and I know this is mainly a salvage episode, but I was just actually thinking even with rep, you might actually even need to have rep grinded to have the plans to be able to actually 3D print particular parts.
Yeah, have rep with Asperia to get the plans for the ships that you want to repair.
Yeah, that could
or RSI,
and that all of a sudden negates how you level up because you can't just go straight to the top.
Well, you even imagine with salvage, do the same thing. You've got the rep with Asperia. They've given you the plan, so you go up to this old wreck and right, that's where the components are. That's where the fuel cells are. That's where so they're the areas I've got to rip out first. So if you know the ships that you're trying to salvage, that's going to gain your ability. And I think it really does. Like it's the same with repair. You know the ships you're repairing, you're going to be able to repair them well. The ships you're salvaging, it's going to help you be able to do that a lot quicker. You look at people who go mining. If I go mining, I'm just picking up whatever and I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just doing it for fun. Yeah. You go with John and it's a complete, total different idea. We're going here because that's where the quantanium is. We're going here because that's where the laranite is. We're going here because, we're not getting quantanium because we want to be able to fill up this and... Whereas if I do it, it's just a fun activity. You look at the people who are really into racing or really into the FPS, and they become really good at their game. And I think we're going to see that with salvage. If you're a professional salvage guy, and you know your trade, you're going to make cash hand over fist.
Well, it'll even I think it'll even be things from certain hulls. So maybe the origins actually are valuable after all, you know, because they're made of more premium materials. So salvaging them, you'll get a better payday. That so just like how you've got a Quantanium rock or a Laranite rock, your hulls, you know, knowing your ships would be a thing.
And then there's that whole other thing. Do I salvage this origin ship and just munch down all the components and get a good payday, or is it worth me kind of salvaging the hull and taking it back to origin? And you know, is there different degrees of salvage there?
Even if you're in a vulture and you can only get a couple of components out, but then you sell off the information for a bigger ship to come in and salvage it as well.
So that ties your info running into the thing. It's one of the things I do like about the way they're designing Star Citizen, that all the professions and all that seem to be intertwined and linked. And as we go down and deeper and deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole, and it is taking a long time to come out, but you can see where they're heading and where they're linking up and the plan.
All interconnected.
So.
All right, then. I think we'll wrap it up there. This is it was actually kind of good to get it out on paper, so to speak. But
if people couldn't tell, we didn't plan this before.
No.
This was on the cuff for both of us. We just went, let's go for this, and
which we do from time to time. But if you like this type of content, subscribe. If you want to go the extra mile on Patreon, let us know in the comments your thoughts too, Algared. Is there anything you would like to hear comments-wise?
As I said, I'm more into the repair side of the salvage is kind of the poor man's repair, as I see it. And I think you're the reverse. You kind of like the salvage, but
I'm going to be honest. I like repair a lot as well. Right, so and one of the reasons we often recommend the Crucible and the Reclaim is because they do go so well together. And I think you would probably say the same. Yeah, you do like salvage as well. Just you prefer the repair side more than So we're about the same. We're just different sides of the coin.
Different sides of the same coin.
And people can let us know in the comments like do you prefer repair over salvage? But what do you think of salvage? And I think just like mining, there are two parts to salvage. There is the stripping and the crushing, and I think just the same with that. It's the same with repair. And I'd like to know what people think. And again, when we did that professional point of view episode on it way back when, it's almost a year ago now, that's when it really dropped for me what this was going to be, and it's way more detailed than I thought. I remember way back when they were actually modeling the ships, they were originally having like, you know, all these polygons and individual pieces, and then when they changed it to just the shell and the ecoskeleton underneath, I was like, oh shit, how are they going to do it now? But I think this will work really well. It's lower than I initially expected, but it's way higher than we've seen in any other game.
And I think like when they were doing the polygons where you'd have salvaged each individual bit, that kind of was fairly
taxing on the system.
Fairly taxing as well, but it was also after a while, so it's so. Whereas this, if it goes anything similar to mining, just that difference in needing to adjust your lasers and adjust your stream and adjust, that's going to make it more complex. So I can see even the different layers as having a great complexity.
And they can do so many things, Algared. Like, you know how we were talking about like copper and titanium? They could literally make it that if you hit a titanium area with a copper laser, it explodes. You know, they can do any of that stuff that they want to do, you know, or it overheats. We haven't even got into overheating.
Your laser and, you know, burns out your laser. So you've got to both those, oh crap, I've now got to go and call on the repair guys because I've burned out my equipment. You know,
so we haven't even gone into that detail over yet. And it's the same thing. Like you could do the same thing with the rocks on the asteroids. You know how you've got the different weak points and strength points. It could be the same thing there, where it, you know, blows
Yeah,
a
you're
fuse or
cutting on a
whatever.
wing, then you've hit a weak spot, and the whole area just shatters and goes away.
I mean in rock mining. You know, on the actual rocks, how
Yep,
you can move it around and there's weak points.
yep.
Yep. Oh, okay. I get what you mean now. You're
Yeah, so you're
saying the
working on the
same thing.
wing to
Yep.
scrape the ring, and you hit the
I'm
wrong
with you.
spot, and it shatters
Yeah.
the wing, or you're trying to repair it, and you don't reinforce the point. And
So what we're trying to say is there's a lot of room for them to move and make it even more detailed that we haven't even gone into. Long story short.
yeah,
So let us know your thoughts on that, kind of our thoughts and overview. But I'm pretty certain everything we went through in the professional point of view to repair is pretty much dead on. It's just how they expanded out from there, and I'd just like to know people's thoughts from there.
yeah.
Anything?
So let us know what you think. Always, we do read every single comment.
Yep.
Believe it or not, we don't always respond to every single comment, but we do read every single comment.
I'm going to be
So let us know what you
honest.
think.
I haven't read the comments from the community post that I did last week when I was in hospital, but I will go through that. I did see a few of them like wishing me well and hoping me a speedy recovery and stuff like that. So I will get to looking through those. But I was on my phone, and one hand on your phone,
Yeah, he was.
not fun.
Get on voice. Get on voice.
Yeah,
I'm typing with one hand. No,
yeah,
get on voice.
yeah. Pretty much. I didn't want to type at all. So I was getting cigarette really quick.
So yeah. So let us know what you think. As Execute said, like, subscribe, hit that bell. Join us if you want to go the extra yard on Patreon. There's also the YouTube membership that you can do as well. All of those things help us sort out things we're doing. May eventually mean we have to look at getting a new camera.
We will be
system.
we'll be streaming a game on Friday. We did miss 2 streams, but that's
Yep.
because, well, one I went up to the buses, and 2 I was in hospital.
And then 2 he was in hospital. So, or actually, on that Friday, I think you just got home, didn't you?
No, I got home. I got home on the I got home on the Monday, and then I got out of hospital on the Saturday, so I completely missed the Friday. So yeah.
So on that note, he's been Execute.
He's been Algared, and we'll catch you.
And we're out of here. Take care.